This is the O-Review podcast. O-Review.
Hello, welcome to another episode. Today I'm going to take a look at a series of glasses again, just more of a lineup of a lot of different models that fit into a specific mold. Specifically, I'm going to take a look at the Aviators today. Starting with the very first ones to the ones that came out most recently. I'm just going to kind of go through the ones I've had in my collection and touch briefly upon a few other ones that were released that I didn't pick up. So the first one to come out was actually the Warden. And I'm using the pink one here because it does have the hammer stem. And at the time, pretty much all of the Oakleys had the straight stem. Nothing had anything curved or such, at least as far back as the razor blade went. So basically, the Warden was the first aviator style frame that they produced because most of the wires up until that point were much smaller. So starting with the E wire, square wire, A wire, and then the C wire, which is even smaller. We really just increased the lens size a lot with this one. So the coverage is obviously a lot more, and it doesn't really have that sleek style that those shorter frames does, but the coverage sort of makes up for that. So after these had been out for a year or so, there was a rumor that there's going to be a trigger-stemmed aviator. And we thought at the time it was going to be the new Crosshair, which ended up being this guy. So these were stretch line only, so you could only get those at surf and ski shops. But this was going to be a general release, so anywhere, in the OPD or online or whatever, you're going to be able to get the Crosshair. So the Crosshair came out and it had the straight stem. So we were wondering, where is that trigger stem? So after the Warden had been released, we did see the trigger appear, but it was actually on the Gen 2 Warden. So the hammer stem was completely discontinued, and we didn't then have the trigger stem on the Warden now. So just a sort of a brief comparison fit. The fit is really nice. I do tend to move towards the Aviators now. I wasn't really a wire person until a lot of these started coming out. It was mostly O-matter and things like that. But once the Aviators started coming out, even though I didn't think that was my style, I actually started wearing them a lot, and they just were very comfortable, and I did like the extra coverage. If you look at my half-frame review, I do tend to like the XLJ lenses, or the things that are a little bit bigger. Not for style or anything, but just mainly for the extra coverage. So here's just a look on the Crosshair. This one is specifically the titanium Crosshair, which I like a lot more just because it's so much lighter. The difference between the C5 and the titanium one, I don't have a scale with me right now, but it's noticeably lighter, so wearing that all day really doesn't cause you any fatigue or anything like that. Another one to come out, which I'm not really sure if it's called an aviator. I don't even consider it really a wire, but it is in the wire, and the hatchet was considered a wire too, so I guess that's concluded, then we can include this one too. But the spike, which also came out in a titanium version, this one isn't it, basically had a much thicker frame, so it's really, like I said, doesn't have too much in common with the wires because it's not, really a wire frame. It's more of just a very solid metal frame, but not so much that it would be like one of the, in the X-metal territory. This one is not as comfortable just because the amount of metal on the frame tends to kind of push it into your head a little bit more. So it just feels like it's clamping on your head as opposed to just resting on your head. So comfort's not as great on this one, but it was one that I sort of needed for my collection, so I did end up picking it up. And I like the design of it. A lot of the accents and rivets and things like that just make it look really nice, but as far as wearing it, it's not one I would really wear too often. Alright, the next one to come out was going to be the Felon, which also came out with the Inmate. So the Inmate's going to be a little bit bigger, and actually I think my second review was one of these, and I recently re-picked up one of these from a friend. And again, this has sort of the same problem as the Spike, where it's just not wide enough at the head. And it's the flatness of this just puts all the flex right in the frame. So in order for this to kind of stretch and fit your head, it really has to almost stretch out and then clamp right back on your head. So putting this on right now, it might be better for smaller heads, but it's pushing on my temples constantly. So after an hour or two of wearing this, you're really going to feel that squeezing on your head. So really, it's not the most comfortable thing. I do like a lot of the styles, a lot of the connection points and things like that. But as far as wearing goes, this is not one of the pieces that I would wear too often. So moving up to the latest ones that I have, and as you see, I picked up quite a few of them. The very first one I picked up was the Ruby, and this is the Deviation. And if you go on the Vault sites or Sunglass Hut now, you'll see these everywhere. I don't know why they're discontinuing them, but they're on clearance all the time. So now is really a good time to pick these up. These are probably the most comfortable. So you put them on, they don't squeeze your head. They just sort of, they grip it lightly, but they rest, on your ears. The coverage is probably the largest out of all of these. Those huge square frames really just block everything out. So from side to side, even your peripheral vision is pretty much covered. I love the fact that they match the icons with the lens. So the Ruby one has a red icon, the Fire one has an orange icon, and even the ones that aren't really color coordinated do have a painted icon, so it does have a match. This one here is the Team USA, and it has blue ear socks and a red icon, and then Team USA logo, so it kind of has the red, white, and blue, with I guess silver being the white. This one is a polished brown with bronze polarized. And this one is a polished gold. And I believe it's just dark gray. I sort of got the polished gold because it does match my original Warden. And actually, as I took this out today, I noticed that this one actually wore a lot. So this ear stems are just leaking. They're getting all gooey. So I got to figure out how to fix that, because it's kind of gross that they're sticking to everything, but that's what happens to unobtainium if you wear it a lot. The last one that came out was the Plaintiff, and I haven't picked up the Plaintiff just because I look at the hinge and it almost looks fragile. I mean, I haven't really worn one to determine if that's the case or not, but it just doesn't seem to be as rugged as the Deviation. And this frame is just, it's solid. I mean, you hold it by the stem and it's just, there's really not too much play with it. So I really like the construction of the Deviation, and as you see, I've picked up quite a few of them, so I do really like that pair a lot. One pair I did miss was the Probation, which was actually a variant of the Felon and the Inmate, but it was a solid shield lens, so they kind of went across the bridge with one solid toric lens. But it basically fit the same. It was just a larger version with a shield lens, so there wasn't too much going on different with that. Alright, so that's really just kind of a brief overview of the Aviators. I've kind of almost turned into a wire person. The Crosshair, I did wear this a lot, but I feel like I wear the Crosshair a lot more, although it has the black unobtainium, so these don't deteriorate as much. But as far as comfort goes, the Thai Crosshairs, and this one actually came out with a 2.0 and then a new Crosshair, which actually was closer to the original. Those and the Deviations I think are probably my top bets for Aviators, but there's a lot out there to suit everyone's needs. So if you have a chance, go check them out, and I will see you next time. Thanks.